You're looking to get right to the heart of a story, aren't you? Get the knowledge, but, skip the endless reading.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do here.
Good. Today we're plunging into this really fascinating ancient narrative. It's like a whole sequence of events just tightly linked.
Dominoes falling one after another.
Exactly, all starting from this single kind of shocking act of disrespect.
Right. We've dug into excerpts from these ancient texts to really pull out the essence. It's got everything. A king, a curse, like super specific and deadly,
Yeah.
an attempt to, maybe stop fate, and then this final unavoidable outcome. It's packed with twists.
So our mission for this deep dive is really to untangle the why behind it all. What is the chain reaction King Parikshit kicked off?
And what were people thinking? What drove their choices?
Let's get right into it then. The very beginning, the spark. King Parikshit and the Rishi Samika.
Okay, so the texts tell us King Parikshit is out, encounters Rishi Samika, but the Rishi is in the middle of observing a vow of silence.
Which is a big deal, spiritually speaking.
A huge deal. And Parikshit, well, he places a dead snake on the Rishi's shoulders.
Wow. Not just rude, but like a major violation.
A profound violation, yeah. Insulting the Rishi, disrespecting the vow.
And the consequences weren't slow in coming, were they? Though, interestingly, not from Samika himself initially.
That's right. It was his son, Shringen. He hears about this dishonor to his father and just unleashes this incredibly potent curse.
Okay, what was the curse specifically?
He declared, with total certainty, that King Parikshit would die within 7 nights, bitten by the snake, Takshaka.
That specific Takshaka.
Yep. The texts really stress Shringen's conviction. And even Samika, his father, knew the words were powerful, that they held truth.
But Samika himself, his reaction is interesting. He wasn't exactly thrilled with his son's anger, was he?
Not at all. While he knew the curse was real, Samika was actually quite troubled, this impulsiveness.
Worried about his son.
Partly, yes, but also about the spiritual cost. Ancient wisdom often talks about anger eroding your ascetic merit, your spiritual gains.
Ah, okay. So he worried Shringen's anger had sort of diminished him spiritually.
Precisely. He even tried to counsel Shringen, talk about patience and forgiveness, but the curse was already spoken.
Still, Samika didn't just leave it at that. He felt he had to do something, right? Try to mitigate it somehow.
He did. Out of compassion, really.
Yeah.
He decided to send a disciple, Garmuka, straight to King Parikshit.
To warn him.
Exactly. The instructions were clear. First, ask about the king's well-being, sort of gently lead into it, and then deliver the bad news.
So Garmuka goes to the palace.
Finds the king with his ministers.
Yeah.
And lays it all out. Tells him what happened and, crucially, about the curse.
What were the key points Garmuka had to get across? What did Parikshit learn right then?
Okay, so Garmuka explains who Rishi Samika is, emphasizes his virtuous nature, his self-control, living peacefully right there in the king's own realm.
Right, reminding him who he insulted.
Then he details the act itself, placing the snake while Samika was observing his vow, completely defenseless.
And then the core message.
Shringen's curse. Death by Takshaka, 7 days. And, importantly, Garmuka also conveyed Samika's regret over his son's anger and, crucially, that Samika couldn't undo the curse.
So the warning wasn't a way out, just a warning.
Yeah, it was pure concern for the king's life from Samika's side, letting him know what was coming.
Wow. Imagine getting that news delivered to you. How did Parikshit take it?
The texts say he was just hit by this wave of sorrow. He remembered his action instantly, vividly, and learning about the vow of silence, that just amplified the guilt.
So deep repentance.
Deep repentance, not just fear of dying, though obviously that was there, but really the weight of the sin against this holy man.
And he didn't just sit there feeling guilty, did he? He acted, which, is a very human response when facing death.
Absolutely. Total anxiety. He immediately calls his ministers, orders this special mansion built.
A mansion, how would that help?
Well, it was heavily fortified, built on just a single pillar, apparently, guarded constantly, stocked with physicians, antidotes, medicines, everything they could think of.
Okay, like a bunker.
Kind of. And he also brought in Brahmins skilled in mantras, sacred sounds for protection, trying to create a physical and a spiritual shield.
Covering all bases seems sensible, given the circumstances.
He was definitely trying. But, as often happens in these stories, fate had another character waiting in the wings, Kasyapa.
Kasyapa. Who was he?
A learned Brahmana, renowned for his deep knowledge of poisons and, crucially, their antidotes.
Ah, so a potential countermeasure to Takshaka.
Exactly. Kasyapa hears about the king's situation, the curse, Takshaka, and he sets out. His plan is to treat the king after the bite happens.
Interesting. What? Wait, And what were his motives?
Well, the text mentioned a mix. He was definitely seeking wealth payment for his incredible skill, but also there was an element of earning spiritual merit, through healing and service. It's a fascinating mix.
Worldly gain and spiritual duty, side by side. But Takshaka, the snake carrying out the curse, he wasn't just going to let Kasyapa waltz in and undo everything, was he?
Not a chance. Takshaka was cunning. He intercepts Kasyapa on his journey.
So.
Disguise. He takes the form of an old Brahmana, walks up to Kasyapa, asks him, where are you going in such a hurry? What's the big mission? Just feigning curiosity.
And Kasyapa, did he see through it? Did he tell this old man his plan?
He was quite open about it. He told the disguised Takshaka that he was going to cure King Parikshit from Takshaka's poison. He even praised the king's lineage, his importance.
Oh, wow. So he basically told the snake exactly how he planned to foil him.
Pretty much. And that's when Takshaka drops the disguise, reveals who he is, boasts about his power, says flat out, nobody can cure someone I've bitten, not even you, Kasyapa.
Okay, so the gauntlet is thrown down. This sounds like it leads to some kind of contest.
It does, a dramatic demonstration.
Yeah.
Takshaka, to prove his point, bites this huge, flourishing banyan tree. Instantly, it just bursts into flames, reduced to ashes, just like that. A real show of deadly power.
Okay, point made. But Kasyapa has his own skills, right?
He does, and he responds by showcasing his own vidya, his spiritual knowledge and power. He focuses on the ashes.
And don't leave me hanging.
And he brings the tree back. Step by step, the texts describe it. A tiny sprout pushes through the ashes.
No way.
Yeah. Then 2 little leaves appear. Then a stem forms, branches start spreading out, and soon enough, the entire tree is standing there again, full of leaves, completely restored.
That's incredible. So Kasyapa proved he could potentially counter Takshaka's venom.
He certainly proved he had extraordinary power. But Takshaka, even seeing this, didn't just give up. He changed his approach.
How so? If he can't overpower Kasyapa's skill.
He appeals to Kasyapa's other motivation, wealth. He basically just says, look, you're powerful, no doubt, but trying to go against a Brahmana's curse, against someone whose lifespan is already ordained, maybe that's not wise. Might even damage your reputation,
Trying to create doubt.
Exactly. And then, crucially, Kasyapa admits, yes, he is motivated by wanting wealth.
Ah. The opening Takshaka needed.
Right. Takshaka immediately offers him a huge amount of wealth, much more than the king could possibly give him. He urges him, just take this, turn around, go home.
A direct bribe. So what did Kasyapa do? Faced with this power, this argument, and this pile of gold.
It's fascinating. The texts say Kasyapa, being this learned Brahmana with yogic abilities, enters a state of meditation right then and there.
To think it over.
More like, to perceive the truth. And in that meditation, he saw clearly that King Parikshit's lifespan had actually run out. The curse was aligned with fate. His time was up.
So intervention would have been futile anyway.
That's what he realized. Trying to save the king would be going against destiny itself. So he accepted Takshaka's wealth, understanding the situation, and turned back.
Wow. So the last line of defense is gone. Takshaka now just needs to get past the guards and the single-pillar mansion. How did he manage that? His methods seem pretty clever.
Extremely clever. He used deception again, illusion. He got other snakes involved.
More snakes.
Yeah, but disguised. They took the form of ascetics, holy men, carrying simple, seemingly innocent offerings for the king.
What kind of offerings?
Things like fruits, kusa grass, that sacred grass used in rituals and water. Things you'd expect pious visitors to bring. The idea was to get inside using trickery, playing on the respect people had for ascetics.
And the king and his ministers, they fell for it. It just seems so hard to spot that kind of deception.
Tragically, yes. It really feels like fate was pushing things along. They saw these figures who looked like holy men, accepted the gifts. No reason to suspect anything sinister. They even decided to eat the fruits.
Oh no, don't tell me.
That decision, yeah, that sealed it. This leads right to the climax, the final tragic moment. The way Takshaka finally appears is, well, it's quite something.
How did it happen?
The king picks up one specific fruit to eat, and as he looks at it, something emerges from inside. Not a normal worm, but this tiny, kind of ugly insect. Barely visible, coppery color, dark little eyes.
Takshaka in disguise again.
Exactly. And at that precise moment, the sun was setting, the 7th day was ending, the king just knew. He realized what this insect was.
And what did he do? Panic. Try to kill it.
No. It's an extraordinary moment of acceptance. He actually speaks to the insect, to Takshaka, and asks him to bite him.
He asked to be bitten. Why?
To fulfill the Rishi's curse, the words spoken by Swingen. And maybe, to fully atone for his original sin against Samika, to accept his destiny.
And his ministers, what did they do?
They agreed. They seemed resigned to it too, concurring with the king's acceptance. It really shows how deeply they believed in the power of the curse and maybe the inevitability of fate.
So Takshaka obliges.
Oh, yes. The tiny insect then transforms, sheds the illusion, reveals its true, terrifying form, a huge serpent coiling around the king's neck.
Oh, man.
And then, with this deafening roar that just shakes the whole place, Takshaka delivers the fatal bite.
The curse fulfilled. The aftermath must have been chaos and despair for the ministers who were there.
Absolute terror and grief. The text described them seeing the king caught by Takshaka, their faces pale, weeping. When they heard that roar, they just fled. Utter panic.
Did they see Takshaka leave?
As they were running out, yeah. They looked up and saw this massive, terrifyingly beautiful serpent rising into the sky like a streak of color.
And the mansion. The safe house.
It just burst into flames, consumed by the power of Takshaka's venom. King Parikshit was dead. The protection failed, or maybe it was just irrelevant by then.
So the king is gone. What happened next in the kingdom?
Well, the immediate steps were taken. The loyal counselors, the royal priest, they performed the king's last rites, all according to tradition.
And succession.
The citizens then recognized Parikshit's son, Janamejaya, as the new king. He was young, but apparently already showed wisdom.
Did he rule alone?
No, he continued to be guided by his father's experienced counselors, which was probably wise.
Yeah.
Later on, he married Vapushtama, who was the daughter of the king of Kasi. The texts paint him as a righteous ruler.
Still, it's such a tragic end for Parikshit, all stemming from that one moment of disrespect, that one action. It really drives home how consequences can spiral, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The potent illustration of that chain reaction, cause and effect, how one act can ripple outwards and lead to these huge, irreversible outcomes.
This whole deep dive, tracing the events around Parikshit's death, it leaves you with a lot to think about. What are the big takeaways for you?
Well, several things stand out. The incredible power that's attributed to words, especially, words spoken with real conviction, like Shringan's curse. That's striking.
Yeah, the weight of words.
And then there's that classic question, fate versus free will. Was Parikshit doomed the moment he insulted the rishi? Or were there points, like with Kasyapa, where things could have gone differently?
It makes you wonder.
Definitely. And maybe most fundamentally, it just hammers home the impact of disrespect, how one action echoed through everything that followed, affecting so many.
It really does make you think about, well, the weight of our own actions, our words. And you mentioned this isn't quite the end of the whole story, right? Janamejaya, his father's death must have affected him.
Oh, absolutely. King Janamajaya's reaction to how his father died. Well, that sets off the next major chapter in this epic story, something we'll definitely need to get into in another deep dive.
Okay, something to look forward to. So as everyone listening reflects on this story, the curse, Kasyapa, the disguises, the final acceptance, think about those twists, the motivations. We hope this deep dive gave you a good handle on this complex piece of narrative.
Yeah, hopefully a clear path through a tangled tale.
So the question to ponder is, what does this story make you think about the power of words, the consequences we face, and that eternal dance between destiny and choice? Something to mull over until next time.